Now that this is working, let's add an integration test for the user profile page. We already have a test that the profile page basically renders. Let's recall that. User show page. Let's just put an exception in here. See if that breaks something. Great, we actually have two errors there, indicating that if anything goes horribly wrong on this page, we're already covered. But now that we've put some more structure on the user show page, let's write a specific integration test for things like the title, the presence of a gravatar, and the presence of pagination, as well as the presence of the content of each micropost. We can start like this. Let's call it the user's profile test. Let's open that up. And let's just go down the list of things we want. Well, we definitely want a user. And so let's just pull that out of the fixtures. And let's test the profile display. Oops, sometimes that end appears and sometimes it doesn't. Still haven't figured that out. All right, well first let's get that path, that user, and insert template users slash show. Let's go here. I like saving it incrementally here. And let's get the title. So it's the title tag, and then we want the title to be the user's name combined with the base title. So that's and then like this. Oh, in fact, we need to get rid of this raise, don't we? We're still red there. Okay, what failed there? Oh, that's right. This goes first. It used to be the other way. But you may recall that we have a helper for this. It's in the application helper. It's a full title helper. So we can actually just add that here. We can include application helper and then just do full title here. Something to be careful of if you do something like this is to make sure to add independent tests for the helper that you're using, because otherwise you could put a typo in here and it would still pass. Right, so we've now introduced an error into the title, but there's nothing here to indicate that. If we rerun the whole test suite, though, we'll see we are red. That's because we hard-coded the title into some of these other places. On the static pages controller test, we've hard-coded Ruby on Rails tutorial sample app. So if you wanted to use this full title helper everywhere, which I do recommend, then you would want to write some specific tests for the application helper, in particular the full title helper. Writing such a test is left as an exercise, so if you get the solutions manual, you'll be able to see the test that I recommend. But in any case, this is working fine now. Let's save this. Just make sure we're green. Good. Next, we can check for a top-level heading in H1 containing the name and the gravatar. So let's do that. So we can do H1 and then text name as at user.name. And then we can also make sure the gravatar is there like this. We can do H1, and then inside the H1 should be an image tag with class equal to gravatar. So you can see if we change this up. Now it fails. So this angle bracket here, this greater than sign, indicates that this image.gravatar should be inside the H1. This is about as detailed as I would ever make an HTML test. I'm pretty sure that I want an H1 on this page, but this is the sort of thing that if you find that you're over-specifying it, you should change the test to be less specific. So what else do we want? Now we're getting to the micropost part. Let's make sure the micropost count is on the page, this here. We want it to be the right count too, so let's do... Now all we care about is that this be somewhere on the page. So there's a really nice, powerful way to do that. This is a way not to specify the specific HTML tag being used. Instead, we can just say it appears somewhere in the body of the page. I say body there, it's actually just the full text of the page. This is a cert match. We're going to put in the count. Count. And we want to convert it to a string. So it should appear somewhere. And there's this response object available inside of tests. And response.body, despite its name, is not in fact just the body of the page. It's in fact the entire HTML. Save that and run it. We're still green. That's good. And now we want to verify that pagination is being invoked. And remember, we did this before. So in the user's index test, you can see we tested for a div with class equal to pagination. So we can do that same thing here. In fact, let's just copy it. I actually cut it accidentally, but then I could just undo and then it still works. Same thing as copy. And save that, and now we're red. So why are we red? Because this was passing, right? The count worked fine. And the answer is because the number of microposts is currently not big enough in the test database to invoke pagination. Remember, we've got the fixtures file here, but there are only 4 of them. And pagination is invoked by default at 30. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the users. Remember, we added 30 users to invoke pagination. So we can do the same thing here. Let's do micropost n. And we want the content to be lorem ipsum text. Do faker. Actually, let's do this here. And we want the created at to be long enough ago that it will never be most recent. So let's just make it quite a few days ago. Save that and see how we did. It's not going to pass. See if you can figure out why. It's still failing, and the reason is because even though now there are enough microposts to invoke pagination, in fact the user still doesn't have any microposts. And that's because, as you may have noticed before when I created these, none of these microposts has a user ID. Now it is possible to add a user ID directly, like this, but then in users.yaml we would need to specify an ID as well, like this. And that's really annoying. Happily, Rails has anticipated this problem, and it's possible to create associations using fixtures. So the way to do that is like this. Instead of user ID, we just say user Michael. In this case, Rails will look for a user with key Michael and just make the association automatically. So let's give the same use rid of all of these micro posts. Now it should work. Let's go over here and save it again. Great. Now that we know that pagination is being invoked, let's check to make sure that the content of each micropost appears on the page. We're going to use the same assert match trick here that we use in this line. So we want to paginate this. First page each do micropost, and we want to assert match micropost on content and then the response body. You can see that it's really nice that we were able to use the faker gem inside here, because if we hard-coded this, each micropost would have the same content and this test wouldn't be very good. But because in general these sentences will be different, it's a good test. Alright, this is a pretty sensitive test for the user profile page without being too specific about the HTML structure.